everybody, today I have another review video. It's on another one of my custom combiners, a lot like my Menasor over there. I'm doing the Combaticons. So with the Combaticons in the movies, they did actually appear, some of them, but not all of them. So in front of us we have Onslaught. He did appear in the movies. He looked kind of like this. I'll show a picture up on screen just to show you what he actually is supposed to look like. And as you can see, I got a pretty decent representation of it. Not perfect, but decent. Anyways, so with this figure, I'm not going to spend too much time since this is really just the movie design, but just in Lego. Do a quick, simple 360 spoiler warning. Yeah, they as well, a lot like the Stunticons I made. They're right over here. Say hello. I made it to where they can combine. They cannot transform, but they can combine. A lot like my Stunticons. And this guy has to be This guy has to be my favorite because he's like the cleanest one out of them all. I'll kind of show them from best to worst. So this one has to be the greatest. He's the most complete. He's the most sturdy. Well, mostly sturdy. His chest can open up. This is not intended. Well, this is actually part of the combined mode, but yeah. I used some of the for his chest piece. I used some of the Nexonite chest pieces. They like kind of click onto most of the Marvel mechs that they make now. This would click onto the bot. These are used in them. They originated in the Nexonite line, and I had one in green, and it worked really good as his chest plate. So for his vehicle mode, I didn't build a vehicle mode, but I do have a tow truck type Lego car that I could use. Yeah, I didn't build him a vehicle mode because I don't know. So next up we have Vortex. So Vortex, he did not appear in the movies, and this is my own custom design. As you can see, he's got like this big claw on one hand, and then on the other hand, he's got this massive shield with a double-barreled gun on the end. And this massive chunk of kibble on the back will all be explained momentarily. Again, a lot like my Menasor, the combiner is not going to be anatomically correct to the cartoon. He forms the leg, not the arm. I know. But he's got some little missiles down here. Pew, pew. Now those are lost forever. Yeah, he's got a very tall neck. I normally like to hide it by putting him kind of like a pose like this. Because actually when I first built him, I put him at something kind of like that. And I was like, this thing is awful. Then I put him at a bit of a tilt, and it gave him a bit of personality. The lankiness of him. He doesn't have any knees, but I kind of ran low on pieces when making him. So with Vortex, I actually made him a vehicle mode. Oh, here. So as you can see, Vortex turns to a helicopter, as he's supposed to. And this time I tried to make them look more like their vehicle modes. Like as you can see, there's a lot more, like the missiles translate, the small little bits of red translate. His hand is the blades of the helicopter. I tried to make them look more like each other because with my Stunticons, they did not really match up. And as you can see, I've actually modified them a bit. I'll probably show them off at the end of the video. But yeah, I tried to make these weird shoulder things at the back. These shoulder things at the back turn into these cannons. I had all sorts of little details in the back, like that. Yeah, I tried to make them look like, if you were to look at these two, you could tell that they're supposed to turn into each other. So yeah, this helicopter is completely custom made. I'm really proud of the way it turned out. The way you have the dark gray stripe and the little sprinkles of red at the top. Like, I feel like it's a nice even balance of colors, and it looks like it looks pretty good. You can even fit a minifigure in there. Yeah, that's his helicopter mode. Okay, so next up we have Swindle. And these guys, as I'm going on, are getting pretty tall. Here's Onslaught for a reference. Yeah, these guys are getting really tall. But anyways, this guy is basically just a carbon copy of Vortex, because he does come to leg as well, which is G1 cartoon accurate. I actually was planning on making Vortex the arm and actually reskinning him as like as Brawl, but decided not to. So with him, I like to think that he's like not a normal robot, but more so of a drone, and is like enjoys collecting shiny things, which I feel like which is where the Swindle name would come from. Yeah, so I actually have this cool play feature to where this chest plate can be removed. These can be folded inward. Then these two holes right here, those two pegs right there, it'll plug in, making this really cool shield. Now it does leave his chest looking a bit naked. Looks kind of weird, but it leaves him with a pretty cool shield. Like that. It's also like pincers at the end. Now one detail I like is that I managed to make the tires come part of the chest. Of course, again, they don't transform, so there's really no point in putting them in the chest. But I feel like it looked cool and kind of fit the movie-verse, Bayverse design of the more intricately detailed figures. Now for vehicle mode, so like in the cartoon, he turns into an armored military jeep. Of course, in the cartoon, he turns into like more of a World War II type military jeep. This one turns into like a more modern armored jeep. It's got opening doors, as you can see. You fit a minifigure inside, and then another minifigure on the top of the barrel. Kind of, you can swivel around. It falls off easy because it's a stud and not an actual swivel. But it can move pretty easily. Now, the way I designed the Jeep, so I used the same like car model as the one I used for Dead End, which kind of left it as a 4 stud wide, but then I modified it to be 6 studs so it could fit the fancy doors. And the way I designed it, it starts to kind of look more like a Hummer or like some sort of other armored Jeep type vehicle. It's supposed to be a Jeep though. But, so quick 360. It also looks more of a truck from the side. From the front, it looks kind of like a Jeep. From like from side angles, it looks like some sort of Hummer or something. From the side, it looks like a truck, and then from the back, it just pure chaos. Anyway, speaking of the back, so we have like some sort of like gas tank and a water tank, or like the other way around. Now we have a spare tire. It obviously doesn't fit these wheels. Who cares? And this is a cool design. It's a fold down, like kind of like seat for someone to sit on. Like an extra person, they could shoot. Here, fold back up. Yeah, I might put an extra light here or something, but yeah, I got little rear view mirrors. Pretty proud of the design. It's pretty simple. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that this can actually plug on his back, kind of like a thruster like that. It could also plug onto his arm like an arm cannon. Yeah, whatever. Alright, so next up we have Blast Off, or Take Off, or one of those two names. So Blast Off, this is when we start getting a bit like, with the designs I made. He does most certainly fit the movie-verse aesthetic, but he didn't really fit what I was going for. I kind of wanted a big bulky monster, almost looking like my movie Menasor, almost, but it kind of turned out as this weird thing. I did have to sacrifice a lot, because not only was I running low on pieces, but I was also running low on like freedom to build, because this guy needed to become a part of the combiner. And even with all the sacrifices I made, it's still kind of it doesn't work the greatest. Although it isn't my favorite design, it still is a really nice design. As you can see, I went for more of a battle damage face. Looks pretty cool there. He's got these very massive gun arms. I'd like to think that he turns into like a display model of a shuttle and not an actual shuttle. And then these are like the scaffolding that hold it up. And then when he transforms, these come like his arms. Yeah, he's got some weird looking chicken legs. He's got this massive dump truck. This will be explained eventually, but it's just kind of funny when out of context. It just looks like he has a massive rump. He's also got some spare ball joints, some extra joints. Those will also be explained. Yeah, he looks pretty cool, but just wasn't what I was going for. Alright, so for his vehicle mode, I made it this Lego space shuttle. This is another set, a lot like some of these guys, that their vehicle modes. So this is a set. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's pretty simple space shuttle. It's around the same size as Blast Off. I do have to swap out the thrusters on the shoulders because I don't have two of these. But yeah, it's just barely the right size to fit his mass. I was really limited on the size because it got really heavy, and that will be explained when I start combining them. Yeah, it's a simple little shuttle. I'd like to think that this guy kind of transforms into like a mini-con, kind of like Barricade and Frenzy, or like Blast Off could eject this little guy and he turns into like some sort of like Frenzy type robot, and he just runs around causing a muck. Running amok, just causing every no mess. Alright, so now into the final Combaticon, and personally, my least favorite Combaticon that I made. Now, I must warn you, this is extremely bad looking, and just take a look. This is supposed to be Brawl. Let me show a picture to show you what he's supposed to look like. Now, this guy actually forms both arms. And a matter of fact, I didn't even finish building him. This guy's so bad. Now, as you can see, you could kind of see where I'm coming from. The head's a similar shape. The arms have similar weapons. Matter of fact, look at that. He's also missing a piece. Oh, boy. But the colors are extremely inaccurate. He's got random splotches of random colors of green. I was extremely limited on parts when making this guy, and literally, I threw this thing together right before I started filming. And as you can see, I didn't even finish it. Yeah, this guy, he's this. I built him. So with the Stunticons, I built with the robot modes more in mind than the combiner. With this one, I built it with the combiner in mind more than the actual figures, which is why they come out so bad. So Brawl actually does appear in the movies as well, and a lot like Onslaught, I did not make him a vehicle mode, cause well, he turns into a tank, a military tank, and I just didn't want to build it because, again, as I said, I literally just finished this guy right before filming, and so I didn't really have the time to make it. But yeah, he's got extremely flat back. His legs are extremely spread apart. That's because the way I had to build him, his legs would scrape together if they were any closer. But yeah, I could have done much better if I gave it a lot more time, but I threw this guy together. But yeah, this is just sad. Alright, so one thing I forgot to do in my Stunticons review, but I'm doing here, is showing off all my characters together at once. Because last time, I never really showed them together, and you couldn't really get a scale for any of them. But here you can see all of them together. Uh, as you can see, they're all about the same size. Obviously, there's one of them is like a whole 2.5 heads taller than everyone else, but I feel like it gives it some character. Anyways, another thing I also forgot was scale reference. As you can see, we have Earthrise Optimus here, showing off the Matrix. As you see, these guys are around the same size as normal Transformers action figures. Alright, so another thing I'd like to address is my massive size difference between my Stunticons and my Combaticons. I also threw in Unknown Warrior for a little bit of a size reference. As you can see, my Stunticons are a lot more massive than my Combaticons. And this is actually something I wanted. I wanted to make... Menasor was way too big, in my opinion, when I built him. So when I built the Combaticons, I took size into consideration, made them a lot smaller. Anyways, speaking of the Stunticons, I would like to talk about some of the customizations I made, or the modifications I made, since the last time you saw them. More specifically, that guy. Alright, so now getting into my Stunticons. So some of my figures, like these two little ones, are almost completely unchanged, besides a couple like part replacements. My two medium-sized ones, Breakdown and Dead End, are a little more modified. As you can see, Breakdown has gone through a complete makeover, and Dead End has gotten his chest slightly modified. Motormaster and Wild Rider stay almost completely unchanged, besides a couple part replacements and slight updates and stuff. But Dragstrip, on the other hand, he is completely different. Alright, so as you can see, Dragstrip is almost completely different than when you last saw him. Now, why is this? So for Christmas, I got this race car set. And this race car set consisted of these two cars in the set. Now this one in particular in the set stood out to me the most because it was one of those like F1 type race cars. Now, at first I was kind of like, hey, it would be cool if I modified Dragstrip to look like this. Now, it wasn't going to be like 100%, but it was then I got a double of the set. And I decided to take that in advantage to then customize him, because not only did I have pieces to make it to where I didn't have to switch him back and forth, but also I would be able to add some extra stuff to his vehicle mode that I wanted. Anyways, back to drag strip. As you can see, I completely modified him. He no longer has any of the sand color on him. Besides his head, as you can see, there's a little bit of that sand color peeking through. I'd like to think that almost like he used to have the old bust vehicle mode that he had, but then he scanned the race car thinking it was much cooler, and now the race car kind of acts like armor. Like if you were to strip all this away, he would turn back to tan. As you see on the front, I have this 77. His arms are slightly asymmetrical, but still consist of some of the parts. He's lost one of his crossbows and replaced it with this little wing. I also changed his swords, so instead of those weird green leafy ones, they are now these more streamlined blades. So actually, I put this in like the 77 mode because I thought it would just look slightly more interesting with the little yellow bit. But yeah, I'd also like to show you some of the modifications I did to his vehicle mode. Alright, so for his vehicle mode, and this is an absolute treat, it's the normal race car, but I heavily modified it. So what I did, I slightly bulked it up a bit, added a bunch of extra pieces in certain areas to make it slightly bigger and more compact, so it like kind of fits his size a bit better. Some of the key details is that I swooped this bit back a lot further, so it looks a bit more menacing. The reason why he doesn't have the second crossbow anymore is because I put it here. Yeah, so now he's got a crossbow in vehicle mode. Yeah, I also added some spikes at the front. I feel like dragster will be driving through and want to like clear the way. And also the biggest change is the extra set of wheels. I feel like it just absolutely could not be drag strip without 6 wheels, because drag strip is kind of very well known for having 6 wheels. And also in the cockpit, I have this basically faceless robot. This is just a normal minifigure head, but just turned backwards. I'd like to think it almost like, this is kind of like one of the faceless stunt drivers you see in the movies. They never see their face, but like you could still see them in there. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of all the modifications I did to it, and it looks really cool. And also, if you're wondering if he can still combine with all these extra modifications, yes, he can. You probably saw at the beginning of the video, rewind it if you didn't, but he's actually in leg mode. He looks a lot different because originally he was this bright sand color that kind of stood out, but now he's this more dark color that kind of blends in with the rest of the Stunticons a bit more. But yeah, that's pretty much it on him. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. This one will also be split into 2 parts, a lot like my Stunticons. So this time I was reviewing the figures, and next time I will show off the Bruticus, the combined mode. Anyways, until then, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, and goodbye.